Fight for your dreams. Refuse to quit until you create the life you want. Written and published by Fearless Audiobook. Introduction. There comes a moment in every dreamer's life when the dream stops feeling exciting and starts feeling painful. You have worked, waited, sacrificed, and believed, yet nothing seems to change. You look around and wonder why everyone else appears to be moving forward while you are still standing in the same place. And quietly, a dangerous question enters your mind. Maybe I should just give up. But what if this moment is not the end of your dream? What if it is the moment that reveals how deeply you truly want it? Because dreams are not usually lost in one dramatic decision. They disappear slowly, one excuse, one disappointment, one rejection, and one surrendered morning at a time. The tragedy is not that people dream too big, it is that they often quit before they discover what they were capable of becoming. This audiobook is for the person who is tired but still has hope. For the person who has failed but refuses to believe failure is the final chapter. For the person whose dream feels distant, whose confidence has been shaken, and whose heart is asking for one more reason to continue. You may not know how long your journey will take. You may not know exactly how your story will unfold, but you can decide one thing today. You will not quit on yourself. Your dream is still waiting. Now, it is time to fight for it. Chapter 1. When your dream feels impossible. There is a particular kind of pain that comes when you want something deeply, but you cannot see a clear path toward it. You can imagine the life you want. You can see yourself becoming successful, independent, confident, peaceful, or fulfilled. You can almost feel what that future would be like. Yet when you look at your present circumstances, the distance between the two seems enormous. And that distance can make even the strongest person question themselves. Maybe you have a dream that once filled you with excitement, but now feels almost embarrassing to talk about. Perhaps you have tried before and failed. Perhaps you have watched other people achieve things you have been chasing for years. Maybe your responsibilities have grown, your confidence has weakened, or life has simply become harder than you expected. Somewhere along the way, your dream stopped feeling like a destination and started feeling like an impossible fantasy. But feeling far away from your dream does not mean your dream is impossible. Sometimes the problem is not the dream. It is the way you are looking at the distance. When you stand at the bottom of a mountain and look directly at the peak, the summit can appear impossibly far away. You see the height, the rocks, the steep paths, and the exhaustion waiting ahead. You may wonder how you could ever reach the top, but you do not climb a mountain in one giant movement. You take one step, then another. You rest when necessary. You change direction when the path demands it. You keep moving. Your dream works the same way. You do not need to know every step today. You only need to know the next one. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they must feel confident before they begin. They think successful people started with certainty, courage, money, connections, knowledge, and an unshakable belief in themselves. But most meaningful journeys begin with uncertainty. They begin with someone who is afraid but moves anyway. Courage is not the absence of doubt. Courage is deciding that doubt will not make your decisions for you. There will be moments when you compare your beginning to someone else's middle. You will see someone who has achieved what you want and wonder why your journey is taking so long. You will look at their success without seeing their sleepless nights, rejected applications, failed attempts, private sacrifices, and years of preparation. Comparison shows you the destination of another person while hiding the road they traveled. Your journey may be slower, it may be different. It may contain setbacks they never experienced. That does not make your journey less valuable. Perhaps you have already failed several times. Maybe you started something and abandoned it. Maybe you gave everything you had to an opportunity that still did not work out. When this happens, the mind can become cruel. It whispers, "You already tried. What makes you think this time will be different?" The answer is simple. Because you are not the same person you were before. Every attempt teaches something. Every rejection can reveal something. Every mistake can strengthen something. Failure becomes dangerous only when you turn it into an identity. You may have failed at a business. That does not mean you are a failure. You may have been rejected from an opportunity. That does not mean you are unwanted. You may have fallen behind. That does not mean you are incapable of catching up. You may have lost your way. That does not mean you cannot find it again. Your current circumstances are not a permanent verdict on your future. Sometimes you simply need to stop asking, "Can I achieve everything I want?" and begin asking, "What can I do today that moves me closer?" That question changes everything. Instead of being overwhelmed by the entire mountain, you focus on today's step. Instead of worrying about becoming successful overnight, you focus on becoming slightly better. Instead of demanding proof that everything will work out, you decide to give yourself another honest attempt. Small progress may feel insignificant while you are making it, but small progress repeated over months and years can completely transform a life. There is also something you must understand about dreams. They often become most fragile when you are closest to emotional exhaustion. When you have worked hard for a long time without seeing results, quitting can feel like relief. You tell yourself that you are not giving up. You are simply being realistic. But sometimes being realistic is just fear wearing a sophisticated disguise. This does not mean you should blindly pursue every goal forever. Some dreams need adjustment. Some strategies need to change. Some paths need to be abandoned so a better path can be found. Refusing to quit does not mean refusing to learn. It means refusing to abandon yourself. You can change the plan without changing the purpose. You can take a different road without giving up on the destination. You can rest without surrendering. You can begin again without being ashamed. And perhaps that is what you need to hear today. Your dream does not have to look possible from where you are standing. You only need enough courage to take the next step. There will be days when you believe in yourself completely. There will also be days when you question everything. Do not demand perfection from yourself. Do not expect every morning to feel inspiring. Keep moving even when your emotions are uncertain. Because one day you may look back at this chapter of your life and realize something extraordinary. The dream that once seemed impossible was not defeated by your circumstances. It was built slowly and painfully by every step you refused to stop taking. So if your dream feels far away today, breathe. Do not measure your entire future by the difficulty of this moment. The road may be longer than you expected. It may be harder than you imagined. But you are still here, and as long as you are still willing to take another step, your story is not over. Chapter 2. Remember why you started. Every dream begins with a reason. Before the struggle, before the rejection, before the exhaustion, there was a moment when something inside you said, "I want a different life." Maybe it was a quiet thought that appeared when you were alone. Maybe it came after experiencing something painful. Maybe you saw someone living the life you secretly wanted and realized that you could no longer ignore the desire inside you. At the beginning, your dream probably felt exciting. You imagined what your life could become. You pictured yourself achieving something meaningful, making your family proud, becoming financially independent, proving something to yourself, or simply waking up one day and knowing that you had created a life that truly belonged to you. Then reality arrived. The journey became harder. The excitement faded. Progress became slower. The dream that once gave you energy began demanding energy from you. And somewhere along the way, you may have forgotten why you started. That is one of the most dangerous moments in any journey, because when you forget your reason, the struggle begins to look meaningless. Think about the person who begins exercising because they want to transform their health. At first, they are excited. They buy the clothes, make the plan, and promise themselves they will never quit. But after several difficult weeks, the excitement disappears. Their body hurts, Progress seems slow. They begin asking whether it is worth it. If their only motivation was excitement, they may stop. But if they remember why they started, because they wanted to feel stronger, live longer, regain confidence, and become proud of themselves, the struggle suddenly has meaning. Your why gives pain a purpose. This is why you need to understand the reason behind your dream. A goal can tell you what you want. Your purpose tells you why you are willing to fight for it. Maybe you want to build a successful career because you are tired of depending on others. Maybe you want financial freedom because you want to protect your family. Maybe you want to become an entrepreneur because you want control over your time. Maybe you want to write a book because there is something inside you that needs to be expressed. Maybe you want to become stronger because you are tired of feeling powerless. Whatever your reason is, do not underestimate it. Your reason does not need to impress anyone else. It only needs to matter to you. There will be people who do not understand your ambition. They may ask why you work so hard. They may tell you to relax. They may say that you are expecting too much from life. They may even laugh when you explain what you are trying to accomplish. But people who do not carry your dream cannot always understand its weight. You do not need their permission to want more from your life. There is also a deeper reason to remember why you started. Your future self is depending on your present decisions. Imagine yourself 10 years from now. Imagine meeting that version of you and asking, what happened? Would you want to say, I stopped because it became difficult? Or would you want to say, I was afraid, I failed, I got tired, I doubted myself, but I kept learning, kept changing, and kept moving? The person you become tomorrow is being shaped by what you decide today. This does not mean you must destroy yourself chasing a dream. It does not mean you should ignore your health, relationships, responsibilities, or emotional needs. Fighting for your dream is not about constantly pushing until you break. It is about refusing to abandon what matters most. Sometimes fighting means working harder. Sometimes fighting means resting. Sometimes fighting means changing your strategy. Sometimes fighting means walking away from one path so you can find another. But the purpose remains. You must also remember the version of yourself who first believed. That person may have been inexperienced. They may not have known exactly how everything would work. They may have been naive about the difficulties ahead. But they possessed something powerful: hope. Do not become so disappointed by the journey that you punish the person who once dared to dream. Honor that person. They believed that your life could become more meaningful. They believed you were capable of something greater. They believed there was more waiting for you, and even if your original dream has changed, the deeper desire behind it may still remain. Perhaps you once wanted a specific career, but what you really wanted was freedom. Perhaps you wanted wealth, but what you really wanted was security. Perhaps you wanted recognition, but what you really wanted was to feel that your life mattered. Find that deeper reason, because goals can change, circumstances can change, strategies can change, but purpose can continue guiding you. When the journey becomes painful, return to your reason. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Keep it somewhere you can see it. Remind yourself what you are building and who you are becoming. On difficult mornings, you may not feel motivated. That is okay. You do not need to feel inspired every day. You need to remember. Remember the life you said you wanted. Remember the person you promised yourself you would become. Remember the pain that taught you what you never wanted to experience again. Remember the people you want to help. Remember the freedom you want to earn. Remember the younger version of yourself who once believed that something better was possible. And most importantly, remember this: you did not start because the journey would be easy. You started because the destination mattered. There will be days when progress feels invisible. There will be moments when quitting seems easier. But when you reconnect with your reason, the struggle becomes easier to understand. You are not simply working. You are building. You are not simply sacrificing. You are investing. You are not simply enduring difficult days. You are becoming someone stronger through them. So when you feel like giving up, do not immediately ask whether the dream is worth fighting for. First, ask yourself why you wanted it in the first place. Then, listen carefully, because somewhere beneath the exhaustion, beneath the fear, beneath the disappointment, there may still be a voice inside you saying, "This matters to me." And sometimes that is enough reason to take one more step. Chapter 3. When Nobody Believes in You. One of the hardest battles you will ever fight is not the battle against failure. It is the battle against doubt when that doubt comes from the people you love. It hurts when a stranger questions your dream. But when someone close to you says, "You cannot do this," the words can reach much deeper. You begin wondering whether they see something you cannot see. Maybe they know you better than you know yourself. Maybe they are right. Maybe your dream really is too big. And slowly, someone else's doubt can become your own. There may come a time when you share your dream with someone, expecting encouragement, and instead receive silence, criticism, or laughter. They may tell you to be realistic. They may remind you of everything you have already failed at. They may compare you with someone more successful and ask why you think you can achieve something others could not. Sometimes they are not trying to hurt you. Sometimes people discourage you because they are afraid for you. They have seen how difficult life can be. They know the risks. They want to protect you from disappointment, but protection can sometimes become limitation. People can only understand your future through the experiences they have already lived. If they have never seen someone build the life you dream about, they may struggle to imagine that it is possible. Their inability to see your destination does not mean the destination does not exist. Think about how many successful people were once told they were unrealistic. Before an idea becomes successful, it often looks foolish to people who cannot yet see its potential. Before a person becomes confident, they may look uncertain. Before a business becomes successful, it may look insignificant. Before a dream becomes reality, it often looks like nothing more than a fragile belief inside someone's mind. That is why you cannot require everyone to understand your vision before you pursue it. Your dream belongs to you. You are the one who will live with the consequences of pursuing it. You are also the one who will live with the regret if you abandon it simply because someone else did not believe. There is a difference, however, between refusing to listen and refusing to surrender. Not every criticism is negativity. Sometimes someone points out a genuine weakness in your plan. Sometimes you need advice. Sometimes you need someone courageous enough to tell you what you do not want to hear. Wisdom means knowing the difference between useful criticism and limiting belief. Ask yourself, is this person showing me a problem I can solve, or are they telling me I should never try? If there is a problem, solve it. If there is a weakness, strengthen it. If there is something you do not know, learn it. But if someone simply tells you that you cannot become more because they cannot imagine you becoming more, you do not have to accept their conclusion. You can listen without surrendering. And there is another difficult truth. Sometimes the person who believes in you the least is you. You may have spent so much time hearing doubt that you eventually started speaking it to yourself. I am not smart enough. I am too late. I do not have what it takes. Other people are better than me. I always fail. These thoughts can become so familiar that they begin to sound like facts. But a thought is not automatically a truth simply because you have repeated it for years. You must learn to question the voice inside your head. When you hear, "I cannot do this," ask, what evidence proves that I can never learn? When you hear, "I am too far behind," ask, what can I accomplish if I stop comparing my timeline with everyone else's? When you hear, "I have already failed," remind yourself, yes, but I am still capable of learning. Self-belief is not pretending that you are perfect. Self-belief is trusting that you can grow. You do not need to believe that you can accomplish everything immediately. You only need to believe that you can become better than you are today. That belief is enough to begin. Imagine a young person who wants to build a business but comes from a family where nobody has ever owned one. Every time they mention their dream, someone tells them to find a safe job. They are reminded of all the people who tried and failed. Eventually, they begin hiding their ambition because they are afraid of being judged. But one day, they decide that they would rather face the possibility of failure than spend their life wondering what could have happened. They start small, they learn, they make mistakes, they adjust, they fail again, but they continue. Years later, the same people who once doubted them may proudly tell others about their success. That happens often. People may believe in you after you succeed, but you must believe in yourself before the evidence arrives. That is the difficult part. Anyone can believe in a dream after it becomes reality. The real test is believing when there is no proof. When nobody applauds, keep going. When nobody understands, keep learning. When nobody encourages you, encourage yourself. When people doubt you, let your actions become your answer. You do not need to argue with everyone who doubts you. You do not need to explain every decision. You do not need to prove your worth through words. Build quietly. Work consistently. Let time reveal what determination can create. And remember, your goal is not to prove everyone wrong. Your goal is to prove to yourself that you were right to keep believing in your potential. One day, you may look back at the person you were when nobody believed in you. You may remember the criticism, the laughter, the uncertainty, and the lonely moments when you almost gave up. And you may realize that those moments taught you something priceless. You learned how to believe without applause. You learned how to move without permission. You learned how to keep walking without knowing exactly where the road would lead. That is more than confidence. That is strength. So if nobody believes in you today, do not let their doubt become your destiny. You may not have everyone's support. You may not have all the answers. You may not even fully believe in yourself yet. But take the next step anyway. Sometimes belief does not come before the journey. Sometimes you walk first, and belief grows with every step. Chapter 4. The pain nobody sees. Some of the hardest battles in life leave no visible scars. You can wake up, go to work, talk to people, smile, answer questions, and continue your responsibilities while carrying a private storm inside you. The world may see your face, but it does not always see what is happening behind it. It does not see the nights when you question yourself, the mornings when getting out of bed feels difficult, or the quiet moments when you wonder whether everything you are sacrificing will ever be worth it. This is the pain nobody sees. When you chase a dream, people usually notice the ambition before they notice the struggle. They may see you working late, studying, creating, practicing, saving money, building a business, or preparing for a better future. What they do not see are the countless moments when you feel exhausted from trying. They do not see the applications that were rejected, the ideas that failed, the opportunities that disappeared, or the conversations you had with yourself after another disappointing day. Everyone sees the result. Almost nobody sees the price. You may have experienced rejection that you never told anyone about. You may have worked for months towards something only to watch it fall apart. You may have smiled during the day while quietly wondering whether you were strong enough to continue. Perhaps there were nights when you felt completely alone, even though people were only a phone call away. There is nothing shameful about that pain. You are human, and when something matters deeply to you, disappointment can hurt deeply too. The mistake is believing that strength means never hurting. Strength does not mean you never become tired, afraid, frustrated, or emotional. Strength means you learn how to experience those feelings without allowing them to permanently control your direction. You can feel broken and still choose to rebuild. You can feel afraid and still take the next step. You can cry and still continue. Sometimes you simply need permission to admit that the journey is difficult. You do not have to pretend that everything is fine. You do not have to constantly appear confident. You do not have to hide every struggle because you are afraid people will think you are weak. There is courage in being honest with yourself about what hurts. Rest when you need to rest. Ask for help when you need help. Step away when you need perspective, but do not confuse recovery with surrender. A pause can protect your strength so that you can continue the journey. Think about a seed buried beneath the ground. From the surface, it appears as though nothing is happening. There is no visible flower, no strong tree, no evidence of progress. Yet beneath the darkness, roots are forming. The seed is changing before anyone can see the result. Your life can have seasons like that. You may be learning without recognition. You may be improving without applause. You may be developing discipline without anyone noticing. You may be becoming stronger while the outside of your life looks exactly the same. Invisible growth is still growth. This is why you must stop measuring your progress only by visible results. Money matters. Opportunities matter, achievements matter, but they are not the only evidence that your life is moving forward. Maybe you are more patient than you used to be. Maybe rejection does not destroy your confidence anymore. Maybe you have learned to control your emotions. Maybe you have become more disciplined. Maybe you have learned how to manage your time. Maybe you have stopped seeking approval from everyone around you. These changes may never receive applause, but they can transform your future. One of the most difficult parts of chasing a dream is continuing when nobody notices your effort. When people celebrate you, persistence feels easier. When progress is visible, discipline feels rewarding. But when you work for months and receive little recognition, you have to discover a deeper reason to continue. You must learn to become your own witness. You must be able to say, "I know how hard I have worked, even if nobody else knows." Your effort does not become meaningless because nobody applauded it. Your sacrifice does not become worthless because nobody noticed. Your struggle does not become insignificant because you carried it privately. You know what it cost you. That knowledge matters. There will also be sacrifices that people around you may never understand. You may spend your evenings learning while others are relaxing. You may save money while friends are spending theirs. You may turn down distractions because you are focused on something bigger. You may choose discipline when comfort would be easier. People may ask why you are working so hard. You may not have an answer they understand. That is okay. Not everyone needs to understand the dream you are building, but remember that sacrifice should not become self-destruction. Your future matters, but so does your present. Your health matters. Your relationships matter. Your peace matters. You do not need to destroy everything around you to prove that you are serious about your dream. Learn to fight intelligently. Work hard, but recover. Stay disciplined, but remain human. Push yourself, but recognize when you genuinely need rest. A dream should expand your life, not consume every part of it. Another painful experience is watching other people succeed while you are still struggling. Someone you started with may suddenly achieve what you have been chasing for years. Someone younger may reach a milestone you have not reached. Someone with fewer resources may appear to be moving faster. Comparison can make your own progress feel invisible. But you do not know their entire story, just as they do not know yours. You cannot compare your private struggle with someone else's public success. Your journey has its own timing. Your road has its own lessons. Your responsibility is not to arrive at the same time as everyone else. Your responsibility is to keep moving toward the life you want. One day, you may look back at the pain nobody saw and understand that it was not wasted. The rejection taught you resilience. The loneliness taught you independence. The failure taught you humility. The sleepless nights taught you commitment. The uncertainty taught you patience. The sacrifices taught you what truly mattered. You may never be able to explain every difficult moment to another person. You may not even fully understand them yourself, but you can carry what they taught you. So do not be ashamed of the battles you are fighting quietly. You do not need to prove how difficult your journey has been. You only need to keep becoming stronger through it. When the road feels heavy, take today's step instead of worrying about the entire distance. Carry today. Do today's work. rest when necessary, then return tomorrow and take another step. Because dreams are not always built during moments of confidence. Sometimes they are built during quiet nights, difficult mornings, unanswered questions, and painful seasons when nobody knows how close you are to giving up. Those are the moments that reveal your character. And someday, when people finally see the strength in you, they may never know how much pain it took to build it. But you will. You will remember the battles nobody saw. And you will understand that even when the world could not see your progress, you were still becoming the person capable of creating the life you dreamed about. Chapter 5. You are not your failures. Failure has a strange way of changing the way you see yourself. One disappointing result can become a story you tell yourself for years. You try something, it does not work, and suddenly you stop saying, "That attempt failed." Instead, you begin saying, "I am a failure." The difference may seem small, but emotionally it changes everything. When you turn an event into an identity, you stop looking for another opportunity because you have already decided what you are. But you are not your failures. You are the person who experienced them, learned from them, survived them, and still has the ability to continue. Everyone who seriously pursues a meaningful dream eventually encounters failure. Sometimes it arrives as rejection, sometimes it looks like losing money, missing an opportunity, making a terrible decision, disappointing someone, choosing the wrong path, or discovering that something you believed would work simply does not work. Failure can be painful because it does not only challenge your plans, it challenges your confidence. You may begin asking difficult questions. What is wrong with me? Why can everyone else do this? Maybe I am not talented enough. Maybe I should stop trying. These questions are natural, but they can become dangerous when you allow them to define your future. A failed attempt is information. It tells you that something about your approach needs to change. It does not automatically tell you that your dream is impossible. Imagine someone learning to ride a bicycle. The first time they fall, nobody looks at them and says, "You are a failure at cycling. You should never try again." Falling is understood as part of learning, yet adults often treat their own mistakes much more harshly. They expect themselves to perform perfectly the first time they attempt something difficult. Why? Because as we grow older, failure becomes connected with shame. We worry about what other people will think. We worry about looking foolish. We worry that one mistake will change how people see us. So instead of risking another failure, we choose safety. But a life built around avoiding failure is also a life built around avoiding possibility. If you never risk rejection, you may never experience acceptance. If you never risk losing, you may never discover what you can gain. If you never attempt something difficult, you may never discover that you were capable of more than you believed. The goal is not to become someone who never fails. The goal is to become someone who knows how to recover. There is a powerful difference between failure and defeat. Failure is an outcome. Defeat is a decision. You may fail today and still continue tomorrow. You may lose an opportunity and still create another. You may make a mistake and still learn something that makes your next attempt stronger. As long as you continue learning, failure does not have the final word. Sometimes failure is actually protecting you from a version of success you are not ready to handle. You may want something desperately, but your current skills, discipline, patience, or knowledge may not yet be enough. That does not mean you should abandon the dream. It means you have discovered what needs to be developed. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Maybe the answer is patience. Maybe it is preparation. Maybe it is emotional control. Maybe it is better planning. Maybe it is learning to recognize the wrong opportunity. Maybe it is discovering that your original strategy was never the right one. Every failure contains information, but only if you are willing to examine it honestly. This does not mean you should romanticize failure. Failure can cause real damage. It can cost time, money, relationships, confidence, and opportunities. You should not pretend that pain is pleasant. You should acknowledge it, learn from it, repair what you can, accept what you cannot change, then move forward. Do not build a permanent home inside a temporary mistake. There may be a failure from your past that you still carry like a hidden identity. Maybe you remember something you did years ago and still feel ashamed. Maybe you made a decision that changed your life in a painful way. Maybe you disappointed someone you cared about. Perhaps you look back and wish you could return to that moment and choose differently. You cannot. But you can choose differently now. Your past deserves reflection, not imprisonment. You are allowed to become someone your past self would not recognize. You are allowed to grow beyond your mistakes. You are allowed to forgive yourself for not knowing then what you know now. Think about how unfair it would be to judge a child for not knowing what an adult knows. Yet many people do this to themselves. They look at their younger selves with today's knowledge and condemn every decision they made without understanding the circumstances they were living through. You were learning, you were trying, you were becoming. That does not excuse every mistake, but it gives you permission to grow from them. There will also be people who remember your failures long after you have changed. They may continue to see you as the person who made that mistake. You cannot control that. Some people will only recognize your growth after it becomes visible. Do not wait for their approval. Your responsibility is not to convince everyone that you have changed. Your responsibility is to actually change. Let your habits become different. Let your decisions become wiser. Let your character become stronger. Let your future become the evidence. And when you fail again, and eventually you will, do not turn against yourself. Pause, breathe, look at what happened. Take responsibility where necessary. Learn what you can. Change your approach. Then begin again. The person who keeps getting back up develops something that cannot be gained through easy success: resilience. Resilience is not pretending that nothing hurts. It is the ability to feel the pain without allowing it to become your permanent identity. You can be disappointed and still continue. You can be embarrassed and still continue. You can be afraid and still continue. You can lose and still continue. And perhaps one day you will look back at the failures that once made you question your worth and see them differently. You will realize that some of your greatest lessons came from moments you desperately wanted to forget. Chapter 6. The loneliness of chasing something bigger. There is a loneliness that comes with wanting more from your life. It is not always the loneliness of having nobody around you. Sometimes you can be surrounded by people, talking, laughing, working and living normally while feeling completely alone inside because the dream you are carrying is something they do not understand. When you decide to become someone different, your life begins to change. Your priorities change. Your habits change. Your conversations change. The things that once entertained you may no longer satisfy you. The places where you once felt comfortable may begin to feel too small. And slowly, you may notice that some of the people around you are walking in a completely different direction. That realization can hurt. You may start wondering whether something is wrong with you. You may ask why you cannot simply be satisfied with the life everyone else seems comfortable living. You may miss the days when you did not think so much about your future, when you could spend hours doing nothing important and feel perfectly content. But growth often creates discomfort before it creates freedom. When you have a bigger vision for your life, there will be seasons when your path becomes quieter. You may have to spend evenings learning instead of going out. You may have to save money while others are spending. You may need to wake up early while everyone else is sleeping. You may have to say no to distractions that once felt harmless. And eventually, someone may ask, "Why are you doing all this?" You may not even know how to explain it. How do you explain a future that exists only in your imagination? How do you explain the feeling that there is more inside you waiting to be developed? How do you explain why you are willing to sacrifice comfort today for a life you cannot yet prove will exist tomorrow? Sometimes you cannot explain it. You simply know. There is a voice inside you that says, "I was made for more than this." That voice should not be ignored. But wanting more does not mean believing you are better than everyone else. It does not mean looking down on people who choose a different life. Your dream is not a measurement of another person's worth. Everyone has different priorities. Some people want stability, others want adventure, some want family-centered lives, others want businesses, creative careers, leadership, travel, or personal freedom. There is no single definition of a meaningful life. The important question is whether the life you are living is aligned with what genuinely matters to you. If it is not, loneliness may be the beginning of change. One of the most painful experiences is realizing that some people only love the version of you they are familiar with. When you begin changing, they may feel uncomfortable. They may tell you that you have become different, and they are right. You have become different. But different does not always mean worse. Maybe you have become more disciplined. Maybe you have become more serious about your future. Maybe you have learned to protect your time. Maybe you have stopped accepting treatment that once felt normal. Maybe you have discovered that your old habits were keeping you trapped. People who benefited from the old version of you may not always celebrate the new one. That can feel lonely. But you cannot remain the same person simply to keep everyone comfortable. There will be moments when you have to walk away from environments that constantly pull you backward. This does not always mean cutting people out of your life. Sometimes it simply means creating boundaries. Sometimes it means spending less time in places that weaken your focus. Sometimes it means refusing to participate in conversations that leave you smaller than you were before. You can love people without following them. You can care about people without copying their choices. You can appreciate where you came from without remaining there forever. This is especially difficult when the people around you genuinely care about you. They may want you to choose the safer path because they are afraid you will suffer. They may not understand why you would voluntarily choose uncertainty. But remember this, their fear does not have to become your future. There is also a difference between solitude and loneliness. Loneliness says, "Nobody is here for me." Solitude says, "I am using this quiet time to become stronger." The same empty room can feel completely different depending on how you interpret it. If you spend your alone time constantly thinking about what you are missing, solitude becomes painful. But if you use that time to read, learn, plan, reflect, create, practice, and understand yourself, solitude becomes powerful. Some of the most important changes in your life may happen when nobody is watching. You discover what you actually want. You confront your fears. You question your old beliefs. You learn to make decisions without constantly asking for approval. You become comfortable with your own company. And eventually you realize that you do not need constant attention to feel valuable. You become your own source of stability. That is an important part of chasing something bigger. You must learn to continue even when nobody is cheering. Imagine someone who decides to completely change their life. They work a regular job during the day, study at night, save money, and spend weekends building a new skill. Their friends keep inviting them out, but they repeatedly say no. Months pass. The invitations become less frequent. The person feels forgotten, but during those quiet months, they are becoming more capable. They are learning, they are preparing, they are building a foundation. One day, their efforts begin producing results. Suddenly, people notice. But the breakthrough did not begin when everyone noticed. It began when nobody did. That is why you must stop measuring the value of your journey by the amount of attention it receives. Your dream does not need an audience. It needs commitment. There may be seasons when you feel like nobody understands you. There may be nights when you wish someone could simply sit beside you and say, "I know how hard this is." If you have someone like that, appreciate them deeply. But if you do not, learn to become that voice for yourself. Tell yourself, "I know this is hard." Tell yourself, "I know you are tired." Tell yourself, "You do not have to have everything figured out today." Tell yourself, "Keep going." You do not need to pretend that loneliness does not hurt. It does. You are allowed to miss people. You are allowed to want companionship. You are allowed to wish the journey were easier. Just do not mistake temporary loneliness for permanent isolation. Your life will change. You will meet new people. You will find people who understand your values. You will discover friendships built around growth rather than convenience. And you may eventually realize that the quiet season was not taking people away from you. It was making space for a new chapter. The journey toward a bigger life will sometimes require you to walk without a crowd. That does not mean you are lost. Sometimes it means you are walking somewhere different. So if you are in a lonely season right now, do not immediately assume that you have chosen the wrong path. Ask yourself what this season is teaching you. Maybe it is teaching you independence. Maybe it is teaching you discipline. Maybe it is teaching you patience. Maybe it is teaching you how to become comfortable with yourself. And maybe, just maybe, this loneliness is not the punishment for choosing a bigger dream. Maybe it is the quiet space where you are becoming strong enough to achieve it. Keep walking. The crowd may not understand your destination yet. But you do not need the crowd to see the road. You only need the courage to keep taking the next step. Chapter 7. When life forces you to start again. Life does not always give you the chance to prepare for a new beginning. Sometimes it simply takes something away and leaves you standing in the middle of the ruins, wondering what you are supposed to do next. A job disappears. A relationship ends. A business fails. An opportunity slips away. Your plans collapse. Your confidence disappears. Suddenly, the future you spent years imagining no longer looks the way it once did. Starting again can feel like punishment. You may look at everything you built and wonder why it had to fall apart. You may replay old decisions, searching for the exact moment when things went wrong. You may wish you could go back, make a different choice, and prevent the pain you are experiencing now. But life does not allow you to rewrite yesterday. At some point, you must stop looking backward and begin asking yourself a more important question. What can I build from here? That question does not erase what happened. It simply gives you permission to move forward. When you lose something meaningful, allow yourself to feel the loss. You do not have to pretend that you are fine. You do not have to force yourself to smile while your heart is breaking. If a dream collapses, you are allowed to grieve the future you imagined. If someone walks away, you are allowed to miss them. If an opportunity disappears, you are allowed to feel disappointed. Pain deserves to be acknowledged before it can be transformed. But acceptance is not surrender. Acceptance means recognizing that something happened without allowing it to become the end of your story. You can say, "This hurt me," without saying, "This destroyed me." You can admit that life changed without deciding that your future is finished. Starting again also does not mean starting from nothing. You may have lost the job, but you still have experience. You may have lost money, but you still have knowledge. You may have lost an opportunity, but you still have the skills you developed while preparing for it. You may have lost confidence, but you can rebuild it. You may have lost a relationship, but you can carry the lessons it gave you into the next chapter of your life. Nothing meaningful you learned is completely wasted. Sometimes the first attempt gives you something the second attempt never could. Experience. The first time, you may have been excited but inexperienced. The second time, you may be more cautious, more prepared, and more aware of your weaknesses. You know what did not work. You recognize mistakes earlier. You understand yourself better. You have discovered that disappointment hurts, but you can survive it. That knowledge is strength. Starting over can also force you to question whether the life you were building was truly the life you wanted. Sometimes we spend years chasing a goal because we believe we are supposed to want it. We follow a career because everyone expects it. We stay in situations because we are afraid of disappointing people. We pursue money because we think it will finally make us feel valuable. Then something happens that breaks the plan, and suddenly we are forced to ask, what do I actually want? That question can be frightening, but it can also be liberating. Maybe the life you lost was not the life you were meant to keep. Maybe the ending is creating space for something more authentic. Maybe the path that closed was forcing you to notice another path you were too comfortable to explore. You do not have to understand the meaning immediately. Sometimes meaning arrives years later. Think about a person who loses a job they thought they would keep for the rest of their career. At first, the loss feels devastating. They feel embarrassed and afraid. They believe their future has been ruined. But instead of remaining trapped in the loss, they begin learning a new skill. They take a smaller opportunity. They work harder than before. Slowly, they discover a career that suits them far better than the one they lost. Looking back, they may realize that the door they thought had destroyed their future actually pushed them toward a better one. That does not make the pain meaningless. It means the pain was not the final chapter. Rebuilding requires humility. You may have to become a beginner again. You may need to ask questions you once thought you should already know. You may need to accept a smaller opportunity. You may need to start with less money, less recognition, or less confidence than you once had. Do not let your ego stop you from rebuilding your life. A building under construction does not look impressive. It is messy, unfinished, and full of temporary structures. Yet everyone understands that something is being created. Give yourself the same patience. You are allowed to be unfinished. You are allowed to be uncertain. You are allowed to rebuild slowly. Your only responsibility is to keep building. Start with what you have. Use the knowledge you already possess. Use the lessons your failures gave you. Use the strength you developed through difficult seasons. Take whatever remains and create something from it. Maybe your first step is small. Maybe you update your resume. Maybe you learn a new skill. Maybe you make one phone call. Maybe you save your first small amount of money. Maybe you create a new routine. Maybe you simply get out of bed and decide that you are willing to try again. Never underestimate small beginnings. A new life rarely arrives in one dramatic moment. It is usually created through ordinary decisions repeated over time. One choice becomes a habit. One habit becomes discipline. Discipline creates momentum. Momentum creates opportunities. And eventually those small choices can take you somewhere you never expected to go. Starting again does not mean you have returned to the beginning. You are beginning with everything you have learned. You are beginning with experience. You are beginning with scars. And scars are evidence that something hurt you but did not destroy you. So, if life has forced you to start again, do not waste the rest of your life wishing the old chapter had never ended. Take a breath. Accept what cannot be changed. Carry the lessons. Leave the unnecessary weight behind. Then begin. You may have lost a chapter. You have not lost the ability to write the next one. Start again with more wisdom. Start again with more courage. Start again with a deeper understanding of who you are. And if you have to begin again tomorrow, begin again, because sometimes starting over is not life telling you that you failed. Sometimes it is life giving you another opportunity to build something stronger than what existed before. Chapter 8. Choose your dream over your excuses. Every dream eventually reaches a point where you must choose between what is comfortable now and what you truly want later. In that moment, the battle is rarely dramatic. Nobody is standing in front of you with a weapon. There is no great enemy to defeat. Instead, there is a quiet voice saying, maybe tomorrow. There is another saying, you are too tired. Another whispers, what if you fail? And sometimes the most convincing one says, you have plenty of time. That is how dreams are delayed. Not always through one terrible decision, but through thousands of small decisions to postpone what matters. Excuses are powerful because they rarely sound like excuses. They often sound reasonable. You may genuinely be tired. You may genuinely have responsibilities. You may genuinely lack money, experience, confidence, or time. Real obstacles exist, and pretending they do not would be dishonest. But there is a difference between facing a real obstacle and using that obstacle as a permanent reason to stop moving. The question is not whether your circumstances are difficult. The question is whether you are willing to work with the circumstances you have. You may not have 5 free hours every day, but perhaps you have 30 minutes. You may not have enough money to build the business you imagined, but perhaps you can begin learning the skills required to build it later. You may not feel confident enough to take the opportunity, but perhaps you can prepare until you are more capable. Your dream does not always need perfect conditions. It needs a decision. There is a dangerous habit of waiting for the perfect moment. You tell yourself that you will begin when you have more money, more knowledge, more confidence, more time, or fewer responsibilities. But life rarely becomes perfectly convenient. There will always be something. There will always be another reason to wait. And if you allow waiting to become your lifestyle, one day you may wake up with years behind you and the same dream still living inside your heart. Do not confuse preparation with postponement. Preparation moves you closer. Postponement keeps you comfortable. Sometimes you need more knowledge before acting. Sometimes you need to save money. Sometimes you need to plan carefully. But there comes a moment when planning becomes another form of fear. You keep researching because you are afraid to begin. You keep watching videos because you are afraid to create. You keep making plans because you are afraid to execute them. You keep saying soon because today feels uncomfortable. At some point you must move. Fear will probably come with you. Let it. You do not have to wait until fear disappears. You simply have to stop allowing fear to control every decision. Think about someone who dreams of writing a book. They have the idea. They have notebooks filled with thoughts. They have watched tutorials about writing. They have researched publishing. They have even chosen a title. But months pass, then years, and the book remains unwritten. Why? Because they are waiting to feel ready. They are afraid the writing will not be good enough. They are afraid people will criticize them. They are afraid nobody will read it. They are afraid that once the idea becomes real, it can fail. So they keep preparing. But eventually they must face the truth. A perfect plan cannot replace action. The first draft may be terrible. The first attempt may fail. The first version may embarrass them. That is okay. A dream cannot become reality while it remains protected inside your imagination. You must be willing to create something imperfect. You must be willing to be a beginner. You must be willing to look foolish before you become good. This is where courage becomes practical. Courage is waking up and doing the work when you do not feel like it. Courage is applying after being rejected. Courage is practicing after making a mistake. Courage is trying again when the previous attempt embarrassed you. Courage is choosing your future over your temporary comfort. And comfort is not always bad. Rest is necessary. Enjoyment is necessary. Family, friendships, laughter, and peace are necessary. The problem begins when comfort becomes an excuse to avoid growth. You cannot build an extraordinary life while constantly choosing the easiest option. At some point, you must be willing to experience temporary discomfort for permanent change. You may have to wake up earlier. You may have to study when you would rather scroll. You may have to save when you want to spend. You may have to practice when you would rather relax. You may have to say no when everyone else says yes. These decisions may seem small, but they accumulate. Your future is being created by ordinary choices repeated over time. That is why discipline matters more than temporary motivation. Motivation says, I feel like doing this. Discipline says, this matters, so I will do it anyway. There will be mornings when your dream feels exciting. There will also be mornings when it feels like a burden. Do not build your future around your mood. Build it around your commitment. If you only work when you feel inspired, your progress will always be unpredictable. But if you create habits that continue even when motivation disappears, you become dangerous to your excuses. You begin proving to yourself that your emotions do not control your actions. That is freedom. Another important truth is that excuses often protect you from disappointment. If you never try seriously, you can always tell yourself that you could have succeeded if you had tried. But that story becomes painful over time. There is a particular kind of regret that comes from knowing you never gave yourself a real chance. Failure hurts. But wondering what could have happened can hurt even longer. You may not be able to guarantee success. Nobody can. But you can guarantee that you will give yourself an opportunity to discover what is possible. That is worth something. Choose the dream. Choose the difficult conversation. Choose the application. Choose the first page. Choose the first workout. Choose the first lesson. Choose the first small investment of effort. Choose the next step. You do not need to transform your entire life today. You simply need to stop negotiating with the excuses that keep you exactly where you are. When your mind says, tomorrow, ask, what can I do today? When it says, I am not ready, ask, what can I learn? When it says, what if I fail? Ask, what if I succeed? When it says, this is too hard, remind yourself why you started. Your dream does not need you to be fearless. It needs you to be willing, and perhaps the most important decision you will ever make is not the decision to pursue your dream once. It is the decision to choose it again and again, every morning, every difficult evening, every disappointing week, every time comfort calls you back. Choose it again. Because one day the life you dreamed about will be built from all those small moments when nobody was watching and you chose your future over your excuses. And when that day comes, you will understand that your life did not change in one dramatic moment. It changed every time you said, I could make an excuse, but I choose to take one more step. Chapter 9. Keep going when you see no results. There is a season in every meaningful journey when you are doing everything you can, yet nothing seems to be changing. You wake up, work, study, practice, sacrifice, and keep showing up. But when you look around, you cannot find the evidence you hoped for. The numbers are still small, the opportunities are still limited, the dream still feels far away. And a quiet thought begins to appear. Maybe this is not working. This is one of the most dangerous moments in the pursuit of a dream. Not because failure has arrived, but because impatience begins convincing you that failure has arrived. When results are visible, persistence feels rewarding. When you work hard and receive recognition, your mind receives proof that the effort matters. But when months pass without obvious progress, continuing requires something deeper than motivation. It requires faith in the process. This does not mean blindly believing that every effort will eventually succeed. It means understanding that meaningful progress is often delayed. The work you do today may not produce visible results tomorrow, next week, or even next month. Sometimes you are building skills before you build success. Sometimes you are creating foundations before anyone can see the structure. Think about a tree. For a long time, the most important growth happens beneath the surface. Roots spread before branches become visible. If you judged the tree only by what you could see above the ground, you might think nothing was happening. Your journey can be like that. You may be learning without recognition. You may be improving without applause. You may be becoming more disciplined without anyone noticing. You may be developing confidence through small acts of courage that produce no immediate reward. Invisible growth is still growth. One of the biggest mistakes people make is measuring their progress only through outcomes. They look at money, followers, promotions, achievements, sales, opportunities, or recognition and decide that nothing has changed because those numbers have not changed enough. But what about the person you are becoming? Are you more disciplined than you were a year ago? Do you recover faster from disappointment? Are you more skilled? Are you more patient? Do you understand your field better? Do you make better decisions? Can you handle rejection without collapsing? These changes matter. Sometimes the external result arrives only after the internal transformation has already happened. Imagine someone who wants to build a successful online channel. They spend months creating content and almost nobody watches. At first, every low number feels like rejection. They begin questioning whether they have what it takes. But during those months, they are learning how to write better, speak better, edit better, understand audiences, create stronger ideas, and remain consistent. The audience may not see the growth, but the creator is changing. Then one day, one piece of content performs better than expected. They are suddenly ready for that opportunity because the months nobody noticed had prepared them. The breakthrough looked sudden. The preparation was not. This is why you must be careful when judging your journey from a single moment. A difficult week is not your whole life. A failed month is not your whole career. A slow year is not proof that you should abandon your purpose. You need enough perspective to understand the difference between not yet and never. Sometimes you genuinely need to change direction. If a strategy is repeatedly failing, you should study the reasons. Persistence does not mean repeating the exact same mistake forever. It means remaining committed to the larger purpose while being willing to change the method. You can adjust the plan without abandoning the dream. You can change the strategy without changing your standards. You can learn from the market, from experience, from criticism, and from your own mistakes. Smart persistence is not stubbornness. It is adaptability. There will also be moments when you feel tired of being patient. You may watch someone else achieve in 6 months what took you 3 years to reach. You may feel embarrassed by your pace. You may wonder why your journey seems harder than everyone else's. But comparison can make slow progress feel like failure. You do not know what another person's life required from them. You do not know what resources they started with. You do not know what opportunities appeared at the right moment. You do not know what struggles happened behind the scenes. Your responsibility is not to match someone else's timeline. Your responsibility is to keep moving on yours. There is something powerful about continuing when nobody can guarantee the result. That is where commitment becomes real. Anyone can work when success looks certain. The deeper test is whether you can continue when uncertainty surrounds you. Can you still study when you do not know whether the opportunity will come? Can you still create when nobody is watching? Can you still practice when nobody compliments you? Can you still save when the future feels distant? Can you still wake up and do the work when yesterday produced nothing? Those are the days that build character. The world celebrates the finish line, but your character is developed on the road. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your identity. Every time you continue after disappointment, you prove that your emotions do not control your commitment. Every time you complete the work without immediate reward, you become more capable of handling future success. This is why delayed results can be valuable. They force you to discover whether you truly want the destination or simply enjoy the fantasy of it. It is easy to love the idea of success. It is harder to love the process. But every meaningful dream has a process. There will be boring days. There will be repetitive days. There will be discouraging days. There will be days when nothing exciting happens at all. Keep going. Your job is not to demand a breakthrough every morning. Your job is to create the conditions in which a breakthrough becomes more likely. Keep improving, keep adjusting, keep learning, keep showing up, and give your effort enough time to reveal what consistency can accomplish. Do not let one quiet season convince you that your entire journey is pointless. You may be closer than you think. The next opportunity may come after one more application. The next client may come after one more conversation. The next breakthrough may come after one more attempt. The skill that changes your future may be learned during the month you almost quit. You do not know. That is the nature of the journey. So keep going, not because success is guaranteed, but because quitting guarantees that you will never discover what could have happened. Keep going because the person you are becoming is worth the effort. Keep going because your dream deserves more than a temporary emotional decision. Keep going because results have their own timing. And when you cannot see the progress, trust the work you are doing, examine the strategy honestly, and take the next step. Sometimes the most important chapter of your success story is the one where nothing seemed to happen. That may be the chapter where you learned how to continue without applause, without certainty, and without visible proof. And when the results finally arrive, you may realize that they were not created by the day everything changed. They were created by all the ordinary days when you refused to stop. Chapter 10. Become strong enough to carry your dream. Most people spend their lives thinking about what they want to achieve. They want success, freedom, financial security, recognition, meaningful relationships, or a life that gives them a sense of purpose. They imagine reaching the destination, standing inside the life they dreamed about, and finally feeling complete. But there is a question that is often ignored. Who do you need to become to carry that life? Because sometimes the dream is not the problem. Sometimes you are simply not ready for what you are asking for. That is not an insult. It is an invitation to grow. A bigger life demands a bigger version of you. If you want greater responsibility, you need greater discipline. If you want freedom, you need the ability to manage yourself. If you want success, you need the emotional strength to handle failure and pressure. If you want wealth, you need the wisdom to manage it. If you want influence, you need character strong enough not to be destroyed by attention. The dream is not only something you achieve, it is something you must become capable of carrying. Imagine giving someone a powerful vehicle before they have learned how to control it. The machine may be extraordinary, but without the necessary skill, it can become dangerous. Success can work the same way. If your external circumstances grow faster than your internal capacity, the very thing you wanted can overwhelm you. That is why the journey matters. The difficult days are not only obstacles between you and your dream, they are training grounds. Every time you discipline yourself when you do not feel like working, you are becoming stronger. Every time you control your emotions, instead of reacting impulsively, you are becoming stronger. Every time you recover from failure instead of collapsing, you are becoming stronger. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are becoming stronger. The person you become during the journey may be more valuable than the achievement waiting at the end. Think about discipline. Most people imagine discipline as punishment or restriction. But real discipline is freedom. When you can control your attention, your time, your habits, and your impulses, you become less controlled by the world around you. You stop needing to feel motivated before taking action. You stop allowing every distraction to steal your attention. You stop allowing temporary emotions to determine permanent decisions. You begin doing what matters, even when it is inconvenient. That is the kind of strength your dream requires. Emotional strength is just as important. Success will not eliminate difficult emotions. In many cases, it creates new pressures. More responsibility can create stress. Greater visibility can create criticism. More money can create difficult decisions. Bigger opportunities can create fear. If you have not learned how to manage yourself when life becomes uncomfortable, external success will not automatically teach you. You must learn before the opportunity arrives. You must become comfortable with discomfort. This does not mean becoming cold or emotionless. It means learning how to feel emotions without allowing them to control your behavior. You can be angry without destroying a relationship. You can be afraid without abandoning an opportunity. You can be disappointed without giving up. You can be excited without becoming careless. You can be successful without becoming arrogant. Emotional maturity allows you to remain steady while circumstances change. Another part of becoming stronger is learning patience. We live in a world that constantly teaches us to expect immediate results. We want instant answers, instant recognition, instant success, and instant transformation. But meaningful growth rarely works that way. A tree does not grow faster because you stare at it. A skill does not become mastered because you want it badly. A business does not become successful because you are impatient. A meaningful life is built through repetition. You must become the kind of person who can continue doing the right things long enough for those things to compound. That requires patience. It also requires responsibility. At some point, you must stop blaming everything around you. Maybe your circumstances are difficult. Maybe someone treated you unfairly. Maybe you started with fewer opportunities. Maybe you experienced rejection that you did not deserve. These things can be real. But responsibility asks a different question. What can I control now? You cannot control what happened yesterday. You cannot control what someone thinks about you. You cannot control whether everyone supports you. But you can control whether you learn. You can control whether you try again. You can control how you respond. You can control what you do with the next 24 hours. That shift from blame to responsibility is powerful. It gives you your power back. You also need to become strong enough to handle uncertainty. Your dream may not come with guarantees. You may have to make decisions without knowing exactly what will happen. You may have to take calculated risks. You may have to move forward while still carrying doubt. You cannot wait for complete certainty. Sometimes confidence is built after action, not before it. Take the step. Learn from what happens. Adjust. Take another step. That is how capacity grows. And do not forget character. Your dream may give you money, recognition, influence, or status, but none of those things can replace integrity. If you become successful but lose yourself, the achievement may feel empty. Ask yourself what kind of person you want to become while pursuing your goals. Do you want to become more disciplined or more desperate, more confident or more arrogant, more ambitious or more selfish, more successful or more disconnected from the people you love? The goal is not simply to win. The goal is to become someone you respect while you are winning. One day, you may receive the opportunity you have been waiting for. When that day comes, you will need more than excitement. You will need preparation. That is why today matters. Every difficult day is giving you a chance to practice. Every rejection can strengthen resilience. Every responsibility can strengthen maturity. Every challenge can teach you something about yourself. Every small act of discipline is preparing you for a larger life. So stop looking only at what you want to achieve. Look at who you are becoming. Ask yourself, if my dream arrived tomorrow, would I be ready to handle it? If the answer is no, do not feel discouraged. Start preparing. Strengthen your habits. Strengthen your mind. Strengthen your character. Learn to manage your emotions. Learn to manage your time. Learn to manage your money. Learn to manage your attention. Learn to keep going without constant encouragement. Because your dream is not asking you to become perfect. It is asking you to become capable. And every day you choose growth over comfort, discipline over excuses, patience over impatience, and courage over fear. You move closer to that version of yourself. The life you want may be waiting ahead, but the person capable of living that life is being built right now. Become that person. Then keep going. Chapter 11. One day, you'll thank yourself for not quitting. There will come a day when you look back at the person you are today and finally understand what they were fighting for. You will remember the uncertainty, the exhaustion, the rejection, the lonely nights, and the moments when you seriously considered giving up. But you will also remember something else. You kept going. You may not have known how the story would end, but you refused to let one difficult chapter decide the entire book. Right now, you may be living through a season that feels endless. You may be working towards something without knowing when the breakthrough will come. You may be making sacrifices that nobody notices. You may wonder whether all the effort is worth it. When you are inside the struggle, it is difficult to imagine yourself looking back at it with gratitude. Pain feels permanent when you are standing in the middle of it. But time changes perspective. The problem that feels enormous today may become a small paragraph in the story of your life. The rejection that made you question your worth may eventually become the reason you found a better opportunity. The failure that embarrassed you may become the experience that taught you how to succeed differently. The lonely season that made you feel forgotten may become the period when you discovered your own strength. You cannot always understand the meaning of a difficult moment while you are living through it. Sometimes you understand later. Imagine meeting your future self years from now. Imagine that version of you standing in the life you once dreamed about. Maybe you have created the career you wanted. Maybe you have built something of your own. Maybe you have achieved financial stability. Maybe you have become confident, disciplined, peaceful, and proud of the person you have become. Now imagine asking that future version of yourself one question. What did I need most during the hardest years? The answer may not be more talent. It may not be more money. It may not even be more opportunities. It may simply be this: I needed you not to quit. Your future self cannot exist without your present self. Every difficult morning you survive becomes part of their foundation. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you strengthen their life. Every time you recover from failure, you give them resilience. Every time you continue learning, you increase their possibilities. You are doing something for a person you have not met yet. That person is you. This is why you should be careful about making permanent decisions during temporary emotional storms. When you are exhausted, everything can look hopeless. When you are disappointed, your dream can suddenly feel foolish. When you are rejected, you may believe that nobody will ever choose you. When you fail, you may believe that nothing will ever work. But emotions change. Circumstances change. You change. Do not allow the worst day of your life to make decisions for the rest of your life. Rest if you need to. Step back if necessary. Change the strategy if it is not working. Ask for help. Take time to recover. But do not confuse needing a pause with needing to surrender. Sometimes the bravest sentence you can say is, I am tired, but I am not finished. You do not have to be strong every moment. You only have to keep returning to the fight. There will also be sacrifices that your future self will understand better than anyone else. The hours you spent learning while others were relaxing. The money you saved when you wanted to spend. The opportunities you rejected because they distracted you from your purpose. The evenings when you worked alone. The mornings when you got up, even though you did not feel motivated. At the time, these choices may feel like losses. Later, they may look like investments. You may eventually realize that the life you wanted was not created by one lucky moment. It was created by hundreds of ordinary moments when you made a difficult choice that nobody else saw. That is why you should never underestimate today. Today may look insignificant, but today repeated becomes a life. One disciplined morning becomes a habit. One habit becomes a character. One character becomes a future. And one future can change everything. Perhaps there are things you regret. Maybe you wish you had started earlier. Maybe you wish you had been more confident. Maybe you wish you had avoided certain mistakes. But regret can either become a prison or a teacher. You cannot return to yesterday, but you can make tomorrow different. Do not spend so much time grieving the person you could have been that you neglect the person you can still become. Your story is not over because you started late. It is not over because you failed. It is not over because someone rejected you. It is not over because your first plan collapsed. As long as you are still willing to learn, rebuild and move forward, there is another chapter available to you. One day, you may look back at this difficult season and realize that quitting would have been the greatest mistake you could have made. You will remember how close you came to surrendering and feel grateful that something inside you whispered, just keep going. Maybe the breakthrough will come sooner than you expect. Maybe it will take longer. Maybe the destination will look different from what you originally imagined, but if you continue growing, your effort will not be wasted. So when you are tired today, remember your future self. Remember the person who will benefit from the courage you are practicing now. Remember the life that can only exist if you continue building it. And when the voice inside you says, give up, answer with something stronger, not today. Then take another step. One day you will thank yourself for doing exactly that. Chapter 12. Fight until the life you dreamed of becomes your reality. Your dream has carried you through doubt, rejection, failure, loneliness, disappointment, sacrifice, and uncertainty. You have questioned yourself. You have started again. You have continued when the results were invisible. You have learned that the journey is not always inspiring and that some of the most important victories happen quietly, long before anyone else can see them. Now comes the final question. How badly do you want the life you keep imagining? Wanting a different life is easy when everything feels possible. Fighting for it becomes different when reality pushes back. Dreams do not become real simply because you desire them. They require decisions, discipline, patience, courage, sacrifice, and the willingness to keep moving when your emotions tell you to stop. That is what this journey has been teaching you. You do not need to have everything figured out before you begin. You do not need everyone's approval. You do not need perfect circumstances. You do not need to know exactly when success will arrive. You need a reason strong enough to keep you moving and the courage to take the next step. Your past does not have the authority to decide your future. The mistakes you made cannot permanently define you. The opportunities you lost cannot determine every opportunity that will come next. The people who rejected you cannot decide your worth. The difficult circumstances you experienced may have shaped you, but they do not have to control where you go from here. You are still capable of changing direction. You are still capable of learning. You are still capable of rebuilding. You are still capable of becoming someone new. Maybe your dream has changed since you first imagined it. That is okay. Growth changes people. You may discover that what you once wanted was only a symbol of something deeper. Perhaps you wanted money because you wanted freedom. Perhaps you wanted recognition because you wanted to feel valued. Perhaps you wanted success because you wanted to prove to yourself that you were capable. Listen to what your dream is really asking for. Then build toward that. Do not become so attached to one specific path that you miss another path leading toward the same purpose. The destination may remain meaningful even when the route changes. Your responsibility is not to force life to follow your original plan. Your responsibility is to keep moving toward the life that reflects who you truly want to become. Fighting for your dream also means accepting that some days will be difficult. You will have mornings when you wake up without motivation. You will have weeks when progress feels disappointing. You will experience rejection again. You will make mistakes again. You will occasionally question whether you are making the right choices. Do not expect the journey to become permanently easy. Instead, become stronger. Learn how to continue while uncertain. Learn how to recover after disappointment. Learn how to work without applause. Learn how to rest without guilt. Learn how to change your strategy without feeling like you have failed. Persistence is not blindly repeating the same action. Persistence means refusing to abandon the purpose while remaining willing to evolve. You may need to try again. You may need to try differently. You may need to begin smaller. You may need to learn something new. You may need to walk away from one opportunity to create another, but keep moving. Your life can change through decisions that appear insignificant in the moment. One application can create an opportunity. One conversation can change a relationship. One skill can open a career. One idea can become a business. One disciplined habit can transform your health. One decision to believe in yourself can change the way you approach everything that follows. Never underestimate the power of one more step. When you feel far from your dream, take one more step. When you fail, take one more step. When someone doubts you, take one more step. When the results disappear, take one more step. When you have to start again, take one more step. You do not have to conquer your entire future today. You only have to refuse to surrender today. And remember that fighting for your dream does not mean fighting every moment. Sometimes you will need to rest. Sometimes you will need to slow down. Sometimes you will need to protect your peace. A person who never rests may eventually become too exhausted to continue. Rest so you can return stronger. Pause so you can think clearly. Recover so you can keep moving. But do not turn a temporary pause into a permanent goodbye. Your dream deserves patience. Your future deserves effort. And most importantly, you deserve the opportunity to discover what your life can become when you stop abandoning yourself. Imagine the person you could become if you continued for another year. Imagine what you could learn, build, improve, and overcome. Imagine how different your life could look if you gave yourself the time required for your efforts to compound. Now imagine 5 years. Imagine 10. You cannot predict every detail, but you can influence the direction. That is where your power lives. Not in controlling everything, not in knowing everything, but in choosing what you do next. So make a decision. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop asking whether everyone will understand. Stop measuring your worth by how quickly you succeed. Stop allowing one failure to become your identity. Stop allowing temporary fear to make permanent decisions. Fight for your dream. Fight for your growth. Fight for your future. And when you fall, rise again. When you lose, learn. When you doubt yourself, remember why you started. When you feel alone, remember who you are becoming. When the road becomes difficult, remember that difficulty does not automatically mean you are going the wrong way. Your dream may take longer than you expected. It may require more from you than you imagined. It may even change along the way. But if you continue learning, adapting, and moving forward, you will never be standing still. The final victory is not simply reaching a destination. It is becoming the person who refused to abandon the journey. So fight with patience, fight with courage, fight with discipline, fight with faith in your ability to grow. And above everything else, refuse to quit on yourself. Because the life you dream about is not created in one extraordinary moment. It is created through ordinary days, difficult choices, quiet sacrifices, and countless moments when you decide to keep going. Take the next step, then another. Keep building, keep becoming, keep fighting. Until one day you look around and realize that the life you once dreamed about is no longer a dream. It is your reality. Your dream was never asking you to be perfect. It was asking you to be persistent. Along this journey, you have learned that doubt will come, failure will hurt, loneliness will sometimes follow you, and results may take longer than you expect. But none of those things have the power to decide your ending unless you give them that power. You may still have unanswered questions. You may still be far from where you want to be. That is okay. You do not need to see the entire road. You only need enough courage to take the next step. Remember why you started. Remember the person you wanted to become. Remember the life you promised yourself you would create. When the world tells you to settle, listen to the voice inside you that still believes there is more. Rest when you are tired. Learn when you fail. Start again when necessary. Change your strategy when it stops working. Ask for help when you need it. But never confuse a difficult season with a hopeless future. Your story is not finished. The dream may take longer. The road may become harder. You may fall more than once. But every time you rise, you become stronger than the version of yourself who once wanted to quit. So keep fighting. Not because success is guaranteed, but because your future deserves a chance. Keep believing, keep learning, keep moving. And whenever you reach the moment when quitting feels easier than continuing, remember this. You do not have to finish today. You only have to refuse to give up today. One more step, one more attempt, one more day. Your dream is still alive. Now go fight for it.